podcast. That's amazing.
Welcome to the Crazy Dre Podcast Show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's your main man, aka Crazy Crockett, aka Andre's Podcast, folks. It is a tough Sunday morning. It's a weekend that we all thought Detroit Lions were going to win against the Washington Commanders, Redskins. Like I like to call them the Redskins because that's what their name should be, right, folks? But that's another story to talk about. But this is a unique thing. The Washington's the same team that booed us out in the NFC Championship game almost 32 years ago or something like that with Joe Gibbs. And now we got kicked out again out of the playoffs. We went 15-2. We went on a bye week. We were going to meet Minnesota Vikings by what Dan Campbell was talking about, and then the Vikings lost to the Rams. And now we have to really think about the big picture. And the big picture is this. Was this trade between Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, is it what it was made out to be? Did the Rams know something about Jared Goff? Did I jump the gun about 3.5 years ago when I thought to myself, what a wonderful world this is that we got Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford. And, you know, Matthew Stafford is a football guy that doesn't need to be motivated, doesn't need to be the guy that needs to be pampered. And he knows football, and he knows how to run his plays, but his talent in Detroit, well, just Kelvin Johnson wasn't enough. And then we traded him to the Rams. Jared Goff had all the talent on his team, the running game, the passing game, everything around him, and they didn't get to the next level. And this is kind of what's happening again with Jared Goff. And everyone says, Jared Goff, but there's so much more to this story because now you have to think about the defense and the defense coordinator, and he might be leaving, Aaron Glen. And you know, the real story is that did Dan Campbell peak? Did Dan Campbell come to a point where his football knowledge, his IQ, or EQ, I would say more EQ, not IQ. IQ I think is pretty good. But EQ, is he not capable of keeping his emotions in check and not going on certain fourth downs or punting the football or talking to Jared Goff and say, hey, we don't need a touchdown. This is cover time. Okay, we don't need a touchdown. We need a first down. And I'm going to use that for example for one of the plays that we threw over Laporta's head for an interception against Washington. And he also did this at the end of the first half when Washington scored again off a penalty that we had too many guys on the field, 12 guys on the field, and then they scored a touchdown. We moved the ball downfield, and then we threw the ball. Jared Goff threw the ball roughly towards the end zone to Williamson. He doesn't see the defender undercuts the ball and intercepts it. So, understanding where everything is placed and the time of the game of everything that's supposed to happen, you have to keep your emotions in check as well. And maybe this is my fault too, though, because I was always concerned about Campbell being too emotional about certain plays that wouldn't go in Detroit's way, having bad calls get put on us, missed calls for Detroit, anything that you can think of. That's what I was afraid of. He would just be irate, running around up and down the sideline, yelling at the referees. But he kept himself emotionally in check. But this is something that I would almost backfired in my case is that maybe he should have been more on Jared Goff and say, hey, looky here. And cuss a little bit here and there. Like, look, man, don't be throwing those effing interceptions again and stop doing the same BS thing and stop feeling sorry for yourself or something. Whatever you don't hear or see on the football field when you're at home. So a lot of times coaches and players will get into each other's faces and tell the player to get his head out of his ass. And sometimes I think with Jared Goff, like I said before, he's the type of quarterback that needs to be pampered, it needs to be fed, it needs to get up. He needs someone there to tell him that he's good enough to be in the NFL every week, every practice. Now, every practice might be a little stretch, but he needs that coach. And Ben Johnson is the type of guy that gives out the play calls, but he's not that guy that would get into Jared Goff's face and say, hey, what the effing shit was that about? I just don't see it that way. And sometimes as a coach, you have to put your players in check, not just through the good times and not just through the bad times, but through the whole effing game. And I think that when you throw the interception, well, first of all, he fumbles the ball. He didn't protect the football in the first quarter, and he fumbles it, and then gives the ball right back to the Commanders. That in itself should have said something to Dan Campbell and say, hey, man, we don't need that effing shit. What the hell are you doing? Protect the football. Because Washington had nothing to lose. They had nothing. They had everything to win by. They needed nothing. Them to be in the playoffs with a rookie quarterback is a feat of his own. So I don't understand how, as an experienced football team as Detroit is, how they allow a bye week and didn't do the diligence and didn't do the homework and didn't understand how to change their game plan. You have 12 weeks in advance without Hutchinson and some other guys like Sewell and Rodriguez, and we just returned Alex Alexander. I can't even say his name. Alex Alexander and other players. But you had 12 weeks. So you have to understand your weakness and your strong points. And yes, Detroit did blitz a couple times, and they didn't even get to the backfield. I mean, Devontae, I think his name is Devontae Smith, the guy that we got from Cleveland Browns. He didn't really do anything. And that's why a lot of people are talking about getting Max Crosby. If you have to pay him, like I didn't think they were going to get him in the first place because it was way too much money. And now knowing that Antonio Pierce is gone, now you kind of have to think back in your head, would have made it more sense to get Crosby on Detroit to create hack problems for Detroit in the playoffs. You can't live and die by a second-year player, Hutchinson. That's not fair for Hutchinson. That's not fair for Sewell. Sewell's very young too. So you can't put all that pressure on these young guys to be outperforming, because that's probably what happened to Hutchinson. He broke his leg. He was trying too hard, and he probably, doesn't matter if he landed on the guy's foot the wrong way or he planted the wrong way. When you overdrive, when you do it too hard, you do it too much, it can do the same thing to a car, to a motor. When you run up the Rams and when you accelerate and put it in gear to rip the tires to make smoke, you're going to tear something apart. And that's what happened to Hutchinson. And sometimes you just have to understand that you can't live and die by two guys or one guy. You can't have a rookie cornerback, D-back, Arnold, know everything by 18 weeks in the first year of any season. He's a rookie. So I'm not going to put any pressure on Branch or Arnold or any of the D-backs, because basically the defensive line really didn't do much because you couldn't get pressure enough to the quarterback. And the quarterback like Daniels and Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, they did it to Detroit too. They did it to Detroit. And it was not a good example for Sam Darnold because he's not going to move anywhere. He's not going to go anywhere. Same thing with Stafford. He's not going to go nowhere. But I tell you the truth, we would have had the same problem with Hurts, and we probably would have had the same problem with Mahomes and Josh Allen if they go to the Super Bowl. Hopefully, they go to the Super Bowl and win it. Buffalo Bills, I'm going for you guys anyways. Probably not going to watch more in the playoffs, but I will watch Buffalo Bills. That is the playoffs, I guess. But the real question you're going to have to ask yourself is this the beginning of the end for Detroit? Did Detroit peak themselves out last year against San Francisco 49ers? And did they shoot themselves in the foot for not going for the field goals, for going for way too many fourth downs in the NFC Championship? Or did this year prove it that when you have someone like Jared Goff, and Jared Goff should have no excuses for playing at home. You're playing at home. You got to protect your football. You know your team is hurt. And you know the thing about Jared Goff is this, and this is something that's very kind of key to what makes a great quarterback and what makes a good quarterback and what makes a real mediocre quarterback. And all the mediocre quarterbacks who become good, but not great, when things don't go their way, they make sure that the rest of the team knows it. Like some people give Tom Brady the credit or Joe Montana, but you know what? When your team's not performing that well, or you give up a sack and a couple of you guys didn't block that well, you get in their faces. Now, that cover sack that Jared Goff fumbled was his fault. Jared Goff sometimes does do that to himself where he'll keep the ball and not just throw it away. And then he just won't run out of the pocket. Matthew Stafford has the same problem too in Detroit. Just won't run out of the pocket, make 4 or 5 yards, or get it to at least to the scrimmage line. But Aaron Glenn, let's go to talk about the defense. And I'm going back and forth, but I'm gotta get up. I mean, I didn't watch the game, enough of the game. I watched the recap because I was at work. So in some ways, I'm kind of happy I didn't watch the game because I would have just been blitz, right? Furious. I don't even know how to explain. I just don't know how to explain that you have a bye week. You're watching a football game against Tampa Bay and the Commanders, and you don't have a game plan to stop Daniels. And it proves to me that something's missing with Aaron Glenn. And the irony is this. Aaron Glenn, at the end of the game against the Minnesota Vikings, he's on the bench sitting down, relaxing, chilling out. And he has his hands out, and he looks like he's on the beach. And that's where he's going to be this rest of the year, on the beach. And I tell you this. Aaron Glenn's profits have come down. Have come down because he didn't know how to. He didn't learn from his mistakes with Josh Allen. He didn't learn his mistakes clearly with Daniels, a rookie quarterback. And you can use all the excuses in the world for your team, but not having your guys playing or defense not there because the defensive players are hurt. You can use it all you want. You can, but it really boils down to the defense coordinator. Because roughly 31 points is pretty good to score. 45 points, giving up 45 points is not good. And maybe that's the biggest issue right there. Maybe we should find a new defense coordinator. Maybe it's time for Aaron Glen to go. Maybe Aaron Glen peaked. Maybe he just, I think Dan Campbell's got a lot of things on this table now. He's got to realize, why did I bring in Bridgewater in the game for a series? Because Jared Goff couldn't play. So there's no reason for that. So he's got to think about that, his quarterback. Then he's got to think about his defense coordinator. Maybe he doesn't know. Maybe there's something missing in that defense coordinator. Maybe he doesn't earn. I mean, this is what I would have done with Daniels. I would have to bring at least 5 guys in all the time with Daniels. I would, even with Hurts, even with Josh Allen, you have to bring 5 guys in. So you got 4 guys on the defensive line. One of those linebackers or safeties or cornerbacks would be coming in for Daniels or Hurts or Josh Allen. You always have to put the pressure on the quarterback, okay? Especially those quarterbacks. Because sooner or later, they're going to throw interceptions. They just will. Because sooner or later, the offensive line is going to get tired of looking around who's coming in, who's the 5th guy who's going to blitz the quarterback. Where are they coming from? They're going to come from the left wing, right wing, or going down the middle. Is it going to be a delay blitz? Now, the delay blitz isn't going to work on that spectrum against Josh Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, or Daniels. Because a delay blitz only gives the defense the offense more opportunity to see what you've got. So you always, when those type of quarterbacks, you always have to bring someone in there. And you can blame everything on the injury report and everything else, but this is why these guys get paid millions of dollars, so that they have their assignment. And you have to figure out, what is Daniel's weak point? Is it going to the left? Is it going to the right? Is it throwing in the middle? Is it throwing to the right hash? Is it throwing to the left hash? Does he not understand the clock in his head of getting blitz? That's what you have to figure the weakness out. Mahomes is easy. If he doesn't have Kelsey, then you can blitz him all the time. And he'll make bad decisions. Josh Allen really doesn't have a running game. So you can always put guys up front and make him throw the football over your head. But that means that man-to-man coverage for your team is more important. So those D-backs and those safeties have to do their job. And those linebackers always have to look out for the tight end. But rarely do they ever use their tight end, Buffalo Bills. Rarely they do. Okay? Daniels is a rookie quarterback, so you have to change everything up all the time. So you have to give him different looks all the time. And I mean different blitz all the time. Fake blitz, 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 fake blitz, 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 fake blitz, coming off the cornerback, coming in for the blitz. You have to understand that there's just so many different plays that you can play. And what every team has been doing since the Mahomes and the Tom Brady era is that when they don't have something to throw downfield, they throw it to the right hash mark to scrimmage line towards the running back. They do that all the time. So if you have one guy on the running back covering the running back and one guy always blitzing the quarterback, you're going to have that coverage. But you have to blitz those. You got to keep going after Daniels. You have to keep going after Hurts. You have to just keep going at him. Now, the Eagles are different, though, because they have a legit running game. Detroit has a legit running game. But Detroit's failure to rely on Gibbs and keep staying on Gibbs is a failure. Because when you kept throwing the ball downfield and you threw those interceptions, what do they tell you? That tells you the defense understood they understood their assignment. They understood that the ball was going to be thrown. When you're playing a team that you have to, sometimes when you're behind and you want to keep the ball out of the offensive, the other team's hands, you have to keep running the game. And maybe you should have been playing more Montgomery. Maybe even if you gain only 3 or 4 yards, 2nd down and 6, 3rd down and 2, the clock would have kept moving, but the game would have slowed down. And that's something that you have to understand, that even with Dan Campbell, you have to understand where you're at. You're falling behind. Your quarterback's all got ants in his pants. You have to slow the game down. You just had to slow the game down. And same thing with Detroit against Buffalo Bills and the Eagles. You have to slow the game down. And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. But that's my take. I really think that Dan Campbell's got a lot more things on his head, on his mind. Maybe he should stop playing around on Instagram and taking pictures with him and his Starbucks. By the way, Dan Campbell, instead of buying Starbucks, buy local Detroit coffee. Coffee. I'm going to talk like I'm from Philly. Coffee. Okay? But that was not relevant. But you got a lot more work to do. You have to figure out if you're going to get, if Aaron Glenn's going to be enough of the defense coordinator. You have to figure out what you're going to do if Hutchinson goes out again or other defense line guys. That is something Detroit's going to have to figure out. You can't rely on 4 guys. Sewell, Rodriguez, Branch, Arnold, Hutchinson. That's 5 guys. But those are like 5 guys that I just called. And I apologize if I don't know, if I didn't call you out your name. The defense. But that's the thing that you have to figure out. You can't rely on 5 guys on your defense to stop the other team. It's a team effort. But, you just can't throw an interception. You just can't fumble the ball. You can't give up the bye week to sit around and lose off a bye week in the playoffs. All right, I'm out of here. Peace, love. Go Detroit. It must have been a bad day for Detroit because the Red Wings lost, the Pistons lost, Detroit Lions lost. It was not a good day for Detroit. Not a good day. So peace, love. Follow me on Instagram. No, not Instagram. Follow me on Patreon, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Peace. I'm out. I'm gone. God bless.